Welcome to How to Talk to Kids About Anything with Dr. Robyn Silverman, a podcast loaded with practical tips, powerful scripts, personal stories, and simple steps to make even the toughest conversations easier. So get ready to get the information you need to make the impact you want from someone you trust, your friend, parenting expert, Dr. Robyn Silverman.
All right, folks, since we are always talking about helping kids thrive here on our podcast, whether we're talking about ADHD or big feelings or friendship or some other challenge, I want to reintroduce my quick note about this tool. I hope you already have this. I've been hearing so much about them. Our Kidversation cards, one meaningful question on the front and a small action on the back. This one, for example, is on open-mindedness. Let's get our kids talking about open-mindedness. And it has a wow question of the day. What's a new idea, food, or activity you've tried lately? It's just to start you off on a conversation. And then, hey, folks, let's also really try to bring open-mindedness into our families. So on the back, you've got 4 steps. So one is listen and learn, hear new ideas without snap judgment. Number 2, ask questions, find out more before deciding. Number 3, try it, give it a fair chance. And 4, reflect, what did you learn or enjoy? And this just helps us to start off the conversation so that when our child does try a new food, does meet a new person, does ask a question, it makes it so we can say, hey, that's open-mindedness. And you can give that an anchor, and we start to talk about character development, and we start to talk about just having the tough conversations, right? When our child shuts down and they're not being open-minded, remember what we talked about, and you can start from that position. In 3 to 5 minutes, you move from small talk to real talk in the car, at the table, anywhere. Our sale is live with free U.S. shipping, and you'll receive a digital starter kit. So you can begin tonight as soon as you purchase. Grab a deck for you, one for a teacher, a coach, a grandparent. It's at kidversationcards.com. Parenting kids and teens with ADHD can feel overwhelming when big emotions and motivation, struggles, and daily expectations collide, especially when executive function challenges are part of the picture. In this episode, we'll explore how executive function impacts behavior, learning, and independence, why traditional discipline often backfires, and how creating calm, strengthening connection, and having intentional conversations can help children build the skills they truly need to thrive at home, in school, and beyond. And later in the episode, I'm so glad to share that when I'm talking to this dear friend of mine who you have met before, this trusted colleague, we'll talk about her new book and the fresh insights it provides to supporting kids and teens with ADHD. Cindy Goldrich is a mental health counselor, certified ADHD clinical services provider, and teacher trainer who specializes in ADHD and executive function. She is the author of the new book, new edition, 8 Keys to Parenting Kids and Teens with ADHD, Supporting Your Child's Executive Function, an updated and expanded edition that builds on her previous work and offers compassionate, science-backed strategies to help children and teens strengthen communication, emotional regulation, and independence at home, at school, and beyond. Welcome, Cindy. Welcome back, I should say, to How to Talk to Kids About Anything.
Thank you. It's always so great to talk to you. Really it is.
Well, I'm excited to have you. I needed this book, so I was so glad to interview you. Before we jump in, we're going to do what we've been doing for the last couple of months, which is High-Low Buffalo, a little game to just get to know you. A high that has been happening recently, a low that may have happened recently, and then a buffalo, a unique thing that we may not know about you already, and I'll start to just give you some time. Okay, so a high for me this morning, I was just getting ready for this podcast, and my dog had curled up next to me and put his head on my leg. There's something just so beautiful about that. We had just gone through like the craziness of the morning. My son had just left for school. I was sitting on the couch and working on this podcast. And then that's where my dog was. And I was like, oh my gosh, just relish this one moment because it is, there's something about having a pet that just lowers the blood pressure. And that was my high today. Low. Well, we went on this beautiful vacation to the Bahamas, and that was great. But my son, the first 3 days, had the flu. That stunk. And so he was really feeling very rough, a very good sport, but whew, that's not fun to have, especially when you're not home. A buffalo, I'll just bring up that Cindy was somebody I interviewed in the first year of this podcast in 2017, I believe. So it was just a long time ago. And I actually interviewed her when I was at a friend's house who was really struggling at the time. I was there visiting to help out. So it sort of etched in my brain because I was at a desk that I wasn't used to. And maybe I probably didn't have my microphone. So, but you should listen to that podcast, everyone, because we went over some really important information. Okay. How about you, Cindy? Your high, your low, and your buffalo, your unique detail about yourself other people might not know.
Well, my high is that, and I mentioned to you before we started all this, my daughter is due to give birth to her second child
Woohoo!
next month when my book launches. So
Yes.
those are pretty big
Two
highs.
big babies
Two big
happening.
babies coming up. It's all really, really great. And today I get to go pick up her daughter who's 2 years old. I get to see her every Tuesday and Thursday. I pick her up from daycare so that we can have some time together. So
Nice.
I it's the best thing in the world. It's
Oh,
just
sounds
it
just
really, really
lovely.
is great.
Yeah.
Something very special about seeing your child parent,
Hmm.
especially when you're in this world, and just loving watching all of that and getting to be with my granddaughter. It's the best.
Oh, that sounds
The
divine.
low, unfortunately, is some continued stress around the weather. I live in Boulder, Colorado,
Mm.
and if anyone listens to this when it's not newly released, it is right now January, and we have only had one day of snow, and that's not good. And it's lovely that I go outside in a t-shirt in the 50s,
Mm.
60s, but that's not normal. And we're having
Mm.
extreme winds, and there are
Oh.
fire warnings all the time. Yesterday,
Mm.
I was evacuated from a building because it was a little fire. It's just,
Wow.
it's
Wow.
yeah, it's real. This climate thing, it's
Oh,
scary.
yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
scary. So that's my low.
I'm sorry
Um,
to hear that. Mm.
my buffalo, I'm just going to laugh in terms of what happened to me yesterday. People don't realize how truly poor my sense of direction is. Oh, I've been living in Boulder for 7 years, and everyone says the mountains are west, just the mountains are west. And I live right near the mountains, so you would think I could get home. Well, yesterday when there was that fire and they closed off some roads, I'm like, I don't know how to get home because my GPS isn't picking up on the roads are closed. I was just like,
Oh my gosh, that is hilarious. Yeah. All right. Bad sense of direction. Look, we all have our thing, right? And it's just a funny thing when you're like all of a sudden you're like, I really need this right now, and somebody needs to help me, and the thing that I'm relying on is not helping me. So,
no.
so in the beginning of your book, Eight Keys to Parenting Kids and Teens with ADHD, you rightly say, for many of you, there is so much chaos, stress, arguing, and waffling that it's exhausting. Parenting kids in general can be difficult. Parenting kids with ADHD is often harder, of course. Before we launch into strategies that can help us parent kids with ADHD and the keys to parenting kids with ADHD, what do you want to say to the weary parent, the frustrated teacher or coach who's listening? They want to have a strong, calm, connected relationship with these children, with this teenager with ADHD, but they're coming up against this and they are feeling the chaos, the arguing, the stress, the waffling. What do you want to
Yeah.
say to them?
What I want to say to them, and it sounds trivial, but I'll back it up, is that there is hope and that you actually truly can make systemic changes that will calm yourself down because it starts with you,
Yeah.
right? And calm your kids down and bring back that joy. One of the things I always say is you should have pictures all over the place of your kids and you in happy moments. They don't have to be, and again, I'm an older person, so we didn't have the Instagram and all those
Mhm.
pictures growing up. I have the silliest pictures of my kids when they have, food all over their face or whatever else. It's just to remind you of that kid that they are, that person that they are, because that person is still there. You can have that relationship. We do it step by step because I don't believe in playing whack-a-mole where, parents will call me and they'll say, oh, we can't get the kid out the door. And then we just so solve that. But then another problem crops up. I want to figure out how do we do this step by
Mhm.
step so that we're creating this systemic change. And it is possible. I see it. I do it all the time.
Well, I love that, and I'm taking it in. I mean, this is something we deal with, and sometimes there are moments when my husband and I congratulate each other, like, "Hey, like we kept calm during that interchange, and that was really important." It does make the difference. It is super challenging. I remember when one of my kids was like, "I'm not going to school tomorrow. Like, I'm not going," and like you have this feeling inside you, like, oh, great. So when I get up tomorrow morning, there is already an argument that's happening. Like we're being warned about it. And so
Yeah.
you're not sleeping well and you're like, you're so frustrated, but there's no talking about it at that moment.
Hmm.
And you could lose your lid so quickly. And
Yes.
somehow, like if it stays on, it kind of freezes it in time instead of allowing it to just get so much worse. So I so appreciate,
Right.
like I underline that in the book because I'm like, yes, like this is super important. So straight off the bat you start talking about executive function challenges. So there, so very there. For one of my teens, like I see this in real time, the homework that's not handed in, it's done and it's not handed in, or
Right.
it's half done and they didn't finish it because they didn't remember to, or the lost wallet, like where did that go, or the out of routine moments that can cause
Mhm.
frustration, like at the airport, like leaving your suitcase like over there, just mind boggling. So what is going on with our children's ability to plan, to remember, to organize when they have ADHD? And then after you explain that, what are some key strategies we can employ to start helping our kid with this executive function piece?
Right. Right. Yeah, I understand everything you're saying. I mean, and that's real life, right? You're painting a very real picture that we deal
Mhm.
with all the time, right? So the first thing I like to teach parents and educators is executive functions are skills. And I'll explain what I mean by that. But, you know, 15 years ago, we weren't even talking about executive function.
No.
It didn't mean we didn't have it. It just meant we weren't identifying, we weren't labeling it, right? And then everyone pretty much thinks, oh, I know what executive function is. We have to go deeper because the thing is, let's say we're talking about learning how to read, not executive function skill. We're just learning how to read, right? Some kids are going to pick up on reading pretty easily. At the
Mhm.
other end of that, we've got kids who have dyslexia, right? Who they could be brilliant because many of them are, right? But they're not picking up on this stuff. So we're teaching them. We're if you are fortunate and you know that if you have a person with dyslexia, you want to teach them with, let's say, an Orton Gillingham program, something that is multisensory and sequential and structured, right? You're breaking it all down. When your kid gets older and they still have dyslexia because that's just something you're born with and you have, right? You wouldn't say to that older child, well, come on, I taught you how to read, just try harder,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
You might
Mm-hmm.
go back to, well, what are the strategies you need here? Executive functions are the same thing. So I'll mention one or two of them in particular. If I say something, okay, an executive function skill is initiation. Okay. That ability to get started, whether it's on the homework or packing up the backpack or anything like that. Right. I'll give you an example. Johnny, it's March. We've been doing this since September. What should you do at the end of the day?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Relate? What's the
Yes.
emotion that you're feeling right now as the parent?
I mean, it's frustrating. It's frustrating beyond. I feel it in my body.
Exactly. It's exhausting. But now, what if I tell you that the ability to get started is a skill, not an expectation?
Mm,
Then you realize, hey, excuse me, if I notice a pattern of behavior, because I'm always looking for patterns of behavior that, Johnny never XYZ or Johnny always XYZ, right? I've got a pattern of behavior. Johnny's always forgetting to pack up. He's always forgetting, he has a hard time starting. Then I know it's a skill that I
mm,
need to help them build. So, how do I build the skill of initiation? One of the things I do is I get a structure, a strategy, and a routine. When I was writing my books, I do the same thing every time. I clear off my desk. I set a timer for 10 minutes because I want to look at my emails. And I know if I don't set that timer, I could go down that rabbit hole and be down there for 2 hours, right? The timer goes off, it signals to my brain, okay, I'm writing. So a structure, a strategy, and a routine. And by the way, you can, for your audience, I've got a parent talk that I give, and I have a recording of it on my website. It's called, well, my website is PTS Coaching, which by the way stands for Pathways to Success, PTS, because they're pathways like this, right?
mm-hmm.
But if you go on the resources under the videos, it's called Ready, Set, Start, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do I get started? I've got a lot more tools in there. But just think of these as skills. These are executive function skills. And
Mm-hmm.
so when someone is deficit in a skill, we do one of four things. We educate, we support, we accommodate, we modify. And I'm going to say that again because I know for sometimes it's like, wait, what'd she say?
Mm-hmm.
Slow it down.
Mm-hmm.
When someone is behind in a skill, we educate, we support, we accommodate, we modify. We don't just keep repeating our expectation.
Mm. Okay. So with that child that you were just mentioning, if you have a child who is struggling in some of these areas, what would be something that you would do to help them using those four steps?
Yeah. So I teach a whole process called creating shared solutions where we really
Yes.
collaborate together, right? And a lot of it, I mean, the card that you chose today, it's so interesting because that's so much at the core of my work. It's helping kids be curious, but it's also helping parents be curious.
Mm-hmm.
Wonder why. So in other words, the first thing you want to do is when the kid is not getting started,
Mm-hmm.
is wonder why. Don't just assume. Because until
Mm-hmm.
I can understand the why, I can't figure out, does it need more education? Does it need more support? Do I need to create some kind of accommodation, like maybe a list or something to help them know what they're getting started on? Or maybe modify where maybe I'm not expecting them to do all of that. Maybe I'm doing some of that with them.
Mm-hmm.
But first, I need to understand, why is this problem happening to begin with?
Right. Yeah, that really makes a lot of sense. And then you know what you're doing. Okay, so you also talk about strong communication with our kids and teens with ADHD. And of course, that's the jam of our show.
Yeah.
That's my book, How to Talk to Kids About Anything. We just have to get into this communication. So when you want to get a point across to your child, perhaps they're making a poor choice, perhaps they are doing something against the household rules. You say, be brief, be firm, be gone. I'm like,
Yep.
okay, let me take this in. Okay. You also say, and this is the part I read out to my husband, not to use sarcasm. Yeah, this is part of his humor. And I remind him it's never well received. It doesn't work, in our family because it's not received in the same way that you would anticipate in other
Yeah. Be happy to
families.
talk about that one.
Yeah, and so yeah, so can you tell us about how we should and then should not communicate with our children with ADHD
Right.
so that it's more effective and things stay calm and our what we're saying doesn't get skewed to you know, it goes off the rails because that's what happens with sarcasm, it seems, in my house.
Absolutely. And it's so interesting. I just did a teacher training in a school, and so it was a whole district of teachers and everything. And we were talking about communication skills.
Hmm.
And I said, who's teaching kids communication skills? The parents assume that they're getting some of this at school.
Hmm.
The teachers assume, well, why aren't these parents teaching their kids how to communicate? And so I love, again, rather that you're bringing that up, because it is a skill that we need to learn how to communicate. I mean, Psych 101 teaches us mirror, reflect, validate, and empathize, right? Mirror back what you hear, validate, I can see that that's true for you. Doesn't mean I agree with it or anything else, but I understand. And then, this must be hard, or I understand that, or this may be exciting, or whatever else. And then where do we go with that? Right. So we do want to teach communication skills. I always say it starts with ourselves, right? If you have a partner, a spouse, or a friend, or whatever else, you can practice these things with each other, or you can use the conversation. I mean, what you've
Hmm.
developed is so perfect for this,
Thank you.
right?
Thank you.
No, it is. It's brilliant. So literally teaching those communication skills, but then let's talk about some of the red flags, right?
Yes, let's.
Sarcasm. So
Yeah.
especially being from the Northeast, and
Hmm.
certain
That's
pockets of
us.
the world, yes, sarcasm is just a way of life. It's just
It
what you
really is. It is just part of the way we communicate, and it's
do.
like expected. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But here's the thing, and here's the rule I've always had in my family. If both people aren't able to laugh, then it's not humor.
No.
So when
Yes.
people say, "Oh, you just don't get my humor,"
Not
right?
funny. That's why.
Here's the thing. I equate it to gaslighting in some ways,
That's
because what's
interesting.
happening is I'm using sarcasm on you. I can't think of an example right now. Maybe you can, but I'm using sarcasm on you. And especially with younger kids, but let's say we're talking adult to adult. If you, as the recipient, feel like you want to respond to that, and your response is, well, I don't like the way you're talking to me. And then the person who's being sarcastic says, oh, you're just taking it too seriously. You
Right.
just
You're
don't
too
get,
sensitive.
you're too sensitive, all those things. That is taking away your ability to be heard, be seen, be
Mm.
connected with. Your emotions are just dismissed,
Hmm.
right?
Right. Right.
So that's the opposite of what we need to do with our kids.
Hmm.
And also keep in mind that the ability to pick up on sarcasm is developmental, and it also is a skill. Some
Mm-hmm.
people, especially, I'm going to go extreme, especially people that may be on the autism spectrum,
Hmm.
they may not pick up on those cues,
Right.
right?
Right. And they take them seriously, and they can get really offended.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And add in the complication of texting.
Oh, yeah.
No matter
Forget
how many
it.
emojis you want to use, you're not picking up on sarcasm.
Right, exactly, exactly. Okay. And I think that's really important. That's what my husband sarcastically said. Well, I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
And
Let
we
them,
had
let them listen to the fuller explanation.
I
And
mean, he had a smile on his
quality.
face when he said it. He knows. I've said it many times now that you cannot use sarcasm,
Yeah.
especially with kids with ADHD. And yes, he ironically said, well,
But
I don't agree with that.
remember my guidance. If both people aren't laughing, it's not humor.
Right,
People
right.
say, oh, you just don't get my sense of humor. You're right. So let's say it a different way, please. Is it
Yes,
some message you're really trying to get across?
right.
Right? Like when the kid, has this whole big plan that they're going to start their homework, right? And they're going to do this, this, and this. And then the parent walks in and says, well, that plan worked out well, didn't it?
Oof. Right. That's a tough
Right?
one. Right.
That say what you really mean. Hey, I noticed that the plan didn't work out.
Right.
Because then I, as the child, can respond to it or can feel seen.
Right. Right. Okay. We're taking that in, folks, aren't we? Thank you. So let's talk about collaboration and those shared solutions a little bit more, because I think that giving an example might be helpful. I know that parents really do need a system for this because, on the one hand, we want our kids to just do the right thing, like on their own. We just want them to just do it. Their peers are doing it, their sister or brother is doing it, and therefore we just want them to just do it. We're tired. We've shown them before. We want them to do it on their own. And on the other hand, sometimes we wonder if we're doing too much. We're enabling when we get involved and even take over. It's easier, it's quicker. So just do it and not have an argument. Collaboration is important so that they learn the skill and they have some scaffold at the same time as needed. So let's say your child is always running late in the morning.
Right.
I hear this a lot, right? This happened in my house.
Oh, yeah.
They need to make the bus. If they don't make the bus, that means you're going to need to drive because they're not just going to miss school, right? So, and it's too far for them to walk or take a bicycle. So, how can we talk with them so that we collaborate and come up with some shared solutions so people can really hear that system that you have so that they can get out of the home on time? We clarify our concern. We figure out what needs to happen to have a successful morning. But let's say we're not sure where to start, and it's been happening a lot, and we're frustrated.
Right. Right. So first, one thing that you've already done is you've identified a pattern. So that's great. This isn't a one-off. Obviously, if your kid normally makes the bus and they miss the bus one time, not a big deal. You've noticed a pattern of behavior. So the first thing you're going to want to do is your own work on that. And what I mean is you're going to be doing this proactively. You're going to be figuring out, well, what really is my concern? Because well, I'll say two things. You mentioned already, well, you can't let the kid miss school. And I'm going to say that's already a solution. Right? Not necessarily the right solution.
Right.
And please, parents out there, don't assume I'm saying, oh, it's no big deal if your kid misses school. Not saying that. Okay. But what I'm saying is that's already a decision point. You've decided I can't let them miss school. That may be part of your things to consider because it's possible maybe missing school that day was a better choice. Maybe there's learning from that, or maybe there's something really going on for your child that missing school was a good thing. I don't know, right? Which is why the next thing I'm going to say, which is so important, is that your explanation guides your intervention. What you assume is happening will guide what you think needs to happen. What does that look like? Well, I assume my kid isn't making the bus because they didn't plan well. Right. And so therefore, now they're late and everything else. So I'm going to need to pitch in and just because they made a bunch of bad decisions and I got to just get them to school. But what if that wasn't the reason the kid missed the bus? What if the kid was so scared about, and again, I'm going extreme just to give the examples. What about the kid that was so scared to get on the bus because yesterday they were really bullied? And they didn't want to share it with you and they didn't know what to do about it. And they're going to do anything they can to just miss that bus. Did me taking them to school solve the problem? No, because I didn't even know what the problem was. So again, I know there are parents out there saying, oh, but I know that that's not the issue. And I agree with you. I'm giving you extreme examples, but you would be amazed at how many assumptions we make about our kids' behavior that are really not right, for better and for worse. So your assumption, I want you to think of as your hypothesis. So the first thing you need to do is check out your hypothesis. And the way you're going to do that is you're going to do your own thinking about, like, what is my concern? Why am I concerned that my kid is missing the bus again? Am I concerned because it's developing a bad habit? Am I concerned? And you want to dig down and dig down and dig down till you get to your core concern. And then you're going to figure out, well, how do I understand his concern? And by the way, maybe he doesn't have a concern. Maybe he just has a perspective. That's okay too. I need to really understand what is going on and help them express it. And then we're going to go back and forth and we're going to have these really meaningful conversations, which again, going back to the art of conversation, my first step might be repairing how we have conversations. So I may not be at this creating shared solutions part yet, but let's say I am. Let's say I can have these conversations. Then we're going to not just come up with a solution. First, we're going to brainstorm a bunch of ideas and check them out against each of our concerns. And then we're going to come up with our solution together. And then parents are going to say, oh, I do this all the time. We come up with solutions and they don't stick to it. Well, guess what? You have to go even further. You have to explore, well, how will we know it's working? What will we do if it's not working? When can we check in with each other? Because a lot of times parents don't check in on the solution until when?
It happens
Not
again.
working.
Yeah.
Right. We want to prevent all of that. So that's why I say, I mean, this is a whole big chapter in the book, right?
Right.
It's not like a quick, like, oh, just ask them and you tell them, and then there's lots of tools, and there's more depth to this whole process, but that's the essential outline.
So if you find that one of the things that you're doing, and this is so normal to do, is you're taking over because you're fed up and you're sick of coming up with solutions, and you're just like, if your child, like your teen, is sitting around on his phone while you're the one who's making breakfast
Hmm.
because otherwise he's not going to eat, and
Right.
then you won't be able to focus, and and he asked you to because he's tired and you want to move things along. Just explaining what's going on in my own head, if that that winds up, he's not quite awake enough and he's not able to lock in, or you're doing the laundry for them because you're throwing in a load anyway, and you keep doing this. You're making
Mhm.
lunch and the snacks and the da, 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 goes on and on because they're
Yeah.
tired and they asked. Like, you're finding yourself doing this. The pattern is you at this
Hmm.
point.
Hmm.
You're trying to solve a problem, but and you're getting to your wits end. What would you say to the parent who's doing that? Because I've absolutely been that parent. I am that parent sometimes, and I know why I do it. So what would you say to the parent who finds themselves just going, forget it, I'm just going to do it?
Right. So the first thing I'll say is you're human
Mm-hmm.
and these are complex, and give yourself a little grace, because sometimes you got to get out the door.
Right.
Sometimes you have a second kid who, you need to tend to that. So it's easier to just throw breakfast at the first kid because you got a
Right.
bigger fire to put out. Right. So give yourself some grace. Okay. But let's talk about enabling versus supporting, because you said that word, a few times already.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about it. Give me an example, if you can, of enabling. And don't say what you should do instead.
Mm-hmm.
Just an example of when someone does this, they're enabling.
I say I'm enabling when my child is sitting down on his phone and wants something to eat and asks me to make it for him. And then
And
I
then you
do.
make it for them.
Hmm.
Right. So I would put this in the category of doing something for someone, you
They're
know,
perfectly capable of
you're just
doing for
making it.
themselves.
Or how about, yeah, making excuses? Or how about blaming others? Well, if the teacher didn't give so much homework, then this wouldn't be a
Hmm.
problem,
Right.
right? All of those things. We know what enabling is, but let's watch what happens. I mean, how about this one? The kid forgot the violin. It's the fourth time this month. And what does that wonderful parent do?
They bring it in.
Bring in the violin.
That's the enabling.
Right.
Yeah.
And what I say to teachers, by the way, because teachers, and again, my daughter's a special ed teacher. I have all the love in my heart and empathy and gratitude to teachers, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes teachers look and they say, oh, this parent just keeps enabling the kid. Can't believe they're bringing in the violin. What I tell the teachers is, maybe what you want to say to the parent is, I notice you're bringing in the violin and again. Is there anything I can do to help? Because, the parent needs that. But let's see
Yeah.
what
We're not doing
happens.
it for the fun of it at this
Right,
point. We're frustrated.
right.
Yes.
But let's see what happened at home. See, Johnny's a good kid, and Johnny knows the rule is first finish your homework, and then you can practice your violin. And so Johnny, is doing his homework, which we know for these kids takes him twice or three times as long
Right.
as, by the way, everything else,
Right.
right? So he finally finished, and now he's going downstairs to practice his violin because he doesn't want to, he wants to do well. He actually enjoys playing the violin and everything else. He goes downstairs, parents yell down, "Hey, Johnny, it's getting late. You got to go upstairs, take a shower, pack up after your shower and everything else." Okay, kid goes upstairs. Evening ends, morning goes, kid leaves, parent goes downstairs, and what do they see?
Violin.
A violin.
Exactly where you left it.
Right. What do I do if I take it again? Is he ever going to learn to pack it up and the tea and all of this?
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? The reality is maybe I should have reminded him, or I'm so proud of him because he made the bus today and
Mm-hmm.
his shoes matched. And okay, he's still fighting with his sister, but I've got that on my list of things to work on. And his room is a disaster, and got that on the list. Maybe I need to write this on the list because you know what? All these other things higher up on the list, they're really much more important right now. I know what I should do. I should spend the time with him to teach him how, but I've only got so many hours in the day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to just put that on the list. So I'm
Right.
going to give you my definition, but just know that I'm going to say it twice. So the first time, just hear it, and then I'll say it again. Here's my definition for enabling. Enabling is doing something for someone else without a plan to help them do it for themselves.
Mm.
Parent has a plan. The plan is right now it's on my list, and I'm going to get to it when I can get to it because right now there are other things. So enabling is doing something for someone else without a plan to help them do it for themselves. So in the meanwhile, that doesn't mean I'm just taking the violin and letting him get away with it. What I might say is, "Hey, Johnny, I brought your violin in again today. We're going to have to work on that. I know
Mm-hmm.
we're working on other things for now, but just know that I know and you know, and yeah, we're going to have to work on that." And that may be it.
Yeah.
So
You know
some,
what's funny is sometimes like when I've gone, why am I doing this? Like what is
Mhm.
happening right now?
Yeah.
So I when my child was like, can you put in the chicken nuggets into the oven? I'm thinking to myself, I've shown him this before. I was like,
But here's the thing.
let's do this together. Could you please take out the pan? And he was like, where do I find the pans again? I'm like, huh. Like it starts to like, I start to see what's going on here. I'm like, right, they're right over here. Okay. And then I was like, okay, now take out the parchment paper so that they don't stick to the pan. He's like, where do I get that again? Okay, so here's where you get that. I was like, okay, and he's like, it's not laying flat. I'm like, okay, remember, you have to crumple it up, right, and then lay it
Right.
down, and he's doing this, and I'm standing there. So this takes everything from me to not take over because I know how to do this, and I can do this really fast, but you have to like literally like plant your feet when you're
So do
doing this.
you remember what I said? These are skills.
Yeah.
You just treated it as a skill that he needed to learn.
Yes.
Beautiful. And
Thank
that,
you. Yeah, it was not easy because you're like,
yeah, but that's it. And by the way, the next step of that might be, let me write these steps down for you. And now it's in the cabinet. So next time you could just look at those steps.
right, that is a good idea.
Yeah, because we know that working memory is also weaker for many of these kids.
Right.
But just
Right,
to
which is why you're like, I just showed them this before.
right,
Why is he asking me where the pans are?
right. But so
Right.
let's put a cap on this. Sometimes what seems like enabling is really supporting
Mm-hmm.
and it's
Right.
prioritizing. So
Right.
that's why I say give yourself some grace. Maybe you're not enabling him at all.
Mm. Mm. Yeah. Okay.
Right?
That felt good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's yeah. All right. So here's the last question before we get our top tip is I would love to get like a brief understanding of failure. It's one of your final chapters, like dealing with failure.
Yeah.
These kids have to deal with failure. Like it's just so much failure because you're constantly compared to peers, to siblings, to what is supposed to happen, what age group you're in, to what developmental stage you're supposed to be in. I mean, this is constant. This is not regular failure. Like I fell off the beam because I was at gymnastics and did a cartwheel and fell off the beam like a lot of people do. This is like every day. I forgot where the pans were. I don't know what's parchment paper again. It's all the time. So
Mhm.
they have this higher incidence of failure. I've seen firsthand sometimes that means that the child would simply decide not to do it. Like, let me not try so they don't risk embarrassment of showing that I'm incompetent,
Mhm.
so they just won't do it. Or they'll try once and not again because they weren't a success the first time, because who is? Because somehow you're supposed to be an expert before you even begin. So, how
Mhm.
do we help kids with ADHD cope with or even embrace failure so that they can be successful in life? Because we know the only way to learn those skills, the only way to make progress is to try and fail.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this has to do with mindset, right? And again, you know that in there I've got a whole thing on your mindset and having a growth mindset and everything else. An interesting thing I learned when I was doing a teacher training was fail is first attempt
Attempt
in
in
learning.
learning.
FAIL, first attempt in learning. But you're right. Sometimes that first attempt is enough to shut you down, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because like, that was an epic failure. You know
Yes.
what I mean?
And I was embarrassed, and
And
somebody laughed.
everything else, right? So what we want to do is we want to help kids look at what is failure about. Good for you that you took a risk on yourself. You took a chance on yourself. You didn't have to try, and yet you did. Or maybe you didn't have a choice and you had to try and you didn't. Well, maybe you weren't ready for it yet. In other words, expand that picture of what that really looks like. And there's lots of things we do in the conversations around that. But it takes courage.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a lot of courage to decide on your own, I'm going to try something. And I always say, look at some of the most famous failures.
Yes.
Oprah Winfrey got
Mm-hmm.
fired from her first jobs. The Beatles got turned down from a million record deals and whatever. Abraham Lincoln ran and lost a million times before he succeeded. I mean, there's just endless examples of people who put themselves out there. There's a really great book by Malcolm Gladwell called The Outsiders.
Mm.
And in one of the chapters, it's The Outliers, not the
Yes, the outliers. Yeah.
Outliers. And one of the chapters is 10,000 hours to mastery. And he talks about
Mm-hmm.
these people that, like, you see them as overnight success, but they're not.
Right. Right.
Nothing could be further from the truth.
Right. And I talk about this in my book too, where, when we're talking about failure and making mistakes and really exposing them to a lot of these people who have failed and ultimately become successful. I even talk about when I'm explaining it to kids, if I'm presenting to parents or to kids and I say, think about, a baseball player and how many times they get up to bat, and that a great batting average,
Right.
is in the 300s. That means
Ex-
they get up to bat and 2 out of 3 times they blow it.
Absolutely.
And they're great. They're great. So it can be helpful for them to see their heroes in that light, and whatever they're interested, whatever gymnast, whatever baseball player, whatever violinist has failed many times. And if they do see that, then they can know that they can step up to bat, figuratively or literally, and try and fail and then try again and succeed. Give us your top tip. What kind of, if we're listening to this podcast, if we're reading your book, what would be the top tip that you would want people to come away with after listening in here or reading your
Yeah.
book?
Yeah. It's wonder why. Kind of what we talked about a little bit, but I'm going to give them parents a little challenge here. Let's say you said to your kid, do me a favor, go upstairs, get your backpack, your shoes, your tennis racket. On the way downstairs, grab your water bottle, my water bottle. Yeah, right? You're feeling that angst, right? Like, this ain't happening,
What
right?
did you say?
Right, exactly. I want you to wonder why, and I want you to come up with 3 explanations that doesn't shame your kid
Mm.
about why that could be happening. And
Mm.
that may be true. I don't know, but it's the exercise of giving the benefit of a doubt before we get grounded in our emotional frustration.
Mm. That is such a nice way of putting that, grounded in your in that emotion. It is so true. That emotional expectation or this rumination, that
Mhm.
is so true. Because once we get there, I mean, I have had full conversations with myself before having a conversation with my kid that has brought me to an emotional height of just completely unnecessary proportions.
Right. Right.
Fascinating to me. By the way, my kid did go to school the next day
Oh,
after
good.
telling me he was not going to school, and I just remained completely calm and remembered, no, it school. This is not an option. And then it was, can I just sleep 10 more minutes? I'm like, that I can say yes to. Uh,
There you go.
find the yes. Okay, give us the resource of the week. Where can we go to get more information about you, your book, and the work you're doing?
Absolutely. So, well, the book, if you're listening to this, I don't know when this podcast is coming out, so I'm
You're
going to
gonna, it's going to be after you launch this
after the
fabulous book.
launch.
So
So
after
you
launch.
can get the book anywhere you get books. And please do write a review if you do get it, because those things do matter for us
They
authors.
do.
They help things rise to the top and help more people know about it, right? My website is PTS Coaching, ptscoaching.com. There's tons of resources. There's more videos, there's articles and everything else. I now am on Substack. So
Mm,
you can look me up on Substack, Cindy Goldrich. I forget the exact name of my Substack. I should know it by heart, but I don't. But I'm posting a lot of really good content there, just good content, which is really, really fun. If parents want, I've got coaches who work, I've got parent coaches, I train parent coaches worldwide. So if you're interested in becoming a parent coach or becoming a teacher trainer or having me go into your school, I do that. But I
mm,
also have coaches who I've trained who do work with parents and work with high school and college kids and work with adults on adulting because
mm.
adult with ADHD is its own thing too, right?
Yeah, that's true.
But the other thing is I have my Calm and Connected workshop series. It's a 7 session workshop series where we really go in a deep dive with all of these things, but it's nice and sequential. So each step builds on the step before. So it's Calm and Connected parenting kids and teens with ADHD and executive function challenges. And I also have a managing homework workshop for parents because that process isn't easy. So it's not a workshop for the kids, it's a workshop for the parents to manage that process. So
Mm. Okay,
lots
this is going to be great then. I'll have all of those links in the
Yeah,
in our notes so that you
exactly.
don't have to sit there and
Exactly.
memorize them.
No, of course, I know you would. So
Yes.
yeah, and anytime, listen, people are amazed, but I actually do answer my phone and I actually do return emails. So feel free to reach out to me at cindy@ptscoaching.com and I'm happy to support you.
Well, I think that's super exciting and super helpful because anybody who's listening who's had any of these challenges, me included, it's really helpful to have somebody who is willing to scaffold and detail some possible strategies. So thank you for being on the show today. Thank you for
Absolutely.
talking to us about all these different strategies, giving us some insight, giving us some language. It is important. It is helpful.
Yeah.
And these are things that we can use today. So I appreciate you taking the time with us today on how to talk to kids about anything.
Thank you. And hopefully it won't be 10 years before we do another one of these podcasts again.
Agreed. Agreed. Well, I've got my takeaways and sweet friends. I know you have yours, so let's discuss them. You can come up to Facebook. You can go to the Dr. Robyn Silverman page. We can talk about it at drrobynsilverman.com. We're going to be on Instagram under Dr. Robyn Silverman. I'll go back and forth with Cindy all week so that we can answer your questions. So we're going to be putting up different memes that you can share with people. We'll put up different videos from this particular podcast so that you can share them with teachers, coaches, your spouse, whoever needs to hear them. And if you love this podcast like I did, I hope you'll go up to iTunes and rate and review it so other people can learn about Cindy and her solutions, all the things she has. And it helps to put our podcast more on the map too. And people can use it all the strategies in their own home. I truly appreciate it. That's all the time we have for today, my fellow parents, leaders, and educators. Thank you so much for tuning in to How to Talk to Kids About Anything. For more information on books, articles, speaking engagements, or curriculum, you can go to drrobynsilverman.com. There's so many great podcasts up there, and the show notes to this podcast will be up there as well. If you're interested in my book, it's anywhere books are sold, How to Talk to Kids About Anything, and the Kidversation cards are at kidversationcards.com. I look forward to weathering the storms and enjoying the sunny side of life together. And please remember, even on the days when you fall short, you've got this. You're here. You're getting the information you need. I know it's not easy, but never forget there's typically a tomorrow. Parenting often provides that ultimate do-over. So if you messed up today, and I do all the time, you have later on today, you have tonight, you have tomorrow, you can try again. You can say to your kid, hey, you remember that conversation we had this morning? It didn't end well. Can we do it again? I'm now calm. I have thought about it. I really want to have this conversation again. I really want to do this again. I see you and I'm right there with you. And as there are moments when we doubt our know-how, our choices, and our sweet, sweet sanity, please know you are 10 times the parent you think you are. Until next time, this is Dr. Robyn Silverman with How to Talk to Kids About Anything. Please tune in again and keep connecting through conversation. See you next week.
You've been listening to How to Talk to Kids About Anything with Dr. Robyn Silverman. For more information on books, articles, speaking engagements, or curriculum, please visit drrobynsilverman.com.